Hi, this morning on Online Teaching Japan, I was in a post discussion with a couple of people, and we were talking about how to get kids to do a little bit of extra work for credit in a class. And I piped up and I said that with ChatGPT, I found a way to get the kids to actually use ChatGPT as a conversation partner. Now, we all know that that's actually quite possible, but I wanted to show how it was a way to get them to do it using Zoom to record them having a conversation. And because it was a very short post, I didn't put in all the details about how I did it. And I said I would do a separate post on how to do it a little bit later. Well, a little bit later is a little bit right now. So let me show you. So you all know that on your smartphone, if you load up ChatGPT, which is right here, I don't know if you can see that very well, but that icon right there, and you get that started, you're going to get ChatGPT. And down here, where they've got the new icon for the headphone, is where you can engage ChatGPT in a conversation. Hi, I want to have a conversation about Macintosh computers. Is that okay?
Absolutely. I'm here to chat about Macintosh computers. What specifically would you like to discuss or know more about?
And if you push that X button that I was just pushing just now, that will pause the conversation. It's important for you to know that it's just paused. The conversation is still there. All of your conversations, as you might have noticed before in ChatGPT, are kept in the sidebar. And in the sidebar of ChatGPT is a list of all of my previous conversations already. Now, you can, if you refresh that, and refreshing is just Command R on a Macintosh keyboard, or I think Control R on a Windows keyboard. If you refresh that, it will show you that I actually engaged in a new chat, because every time you engaged one of these conversations down here, it comes up as a new chat because you didn't specify that you want to continue a chat. And the contents of that chat are actually there. That's exactly what I said. I want to have a conversation about Macintosh computers. And then that's her response. Now, that alone is enough information for you to use to get these kids to, in either a synchronous class, or I'll talk about the details of it later, but in a regular class, tell them, okay, now use Zoom, record yourself using Zoom, and then on the camera with your smartphone, have a conversation with this. That would be enough. Tell them it's a 5-minute conversation, talk about any topic that you like, and that would give you all sorts of ideas for questions that you have. But sometimes your kids are at a level where, even though you could say things like, ChatGPT, please speak to me as if I'm only 10 years old or I'm only 15 years old. And that will really level down ChatGPT's English usage from a normal adult conversation to one that's made for kids. You could do that. But for some kids, and even for some people, I know that is the same for me in Japanese, if you have the text right in front of you as it's being said, you're having dual inputs. Now, for me, having those dual inputs makes it much easier to understand. For some people, making your brain multitask between something that you're reading and something that you're listening to is actually harder. Well, then, whatever you want to do. But for my students, I think most of them will say that if I have the text in front of me as I'm listening, it's much easier for me to comprehend. So this is the trick that you use. You go into ChatGPT on your computer, and if if your computer is a Macintosh or it's a computer is a PC, these will be pretty much the same commands, except the keyboard is a little bit different. But you'll find that the sidebar will show the chat, the newest chat that you just had with ChatGPT that you engaged. And if you go back into ChatGPT, okay, there's the chat as it was right there. Okay, you can see that it's actually the same chat. And if you continue again using that headphone icon, you can continue the chat. So for example, if I go like this, please summarize our chat so far.
Sure. We've just started talking about Macintosh computers. You mentioned wanting to have a conversation about them. Is there a particular aspect or question you have in mind?
Are they less expensive than Windows computers?
Well, the price can vary. Generally, Macintosh computers tend to be on the pricier side compared to Windows computers. However, it depends on the specific models and configurations. Anything specific you're curious about?
You can continue the conversation. So if a student was thinking, oh, I don't understand that, let me think of a question, they can pause the conversation. And most importantly, what I was doing was, as I was having the conversation and I finished my question, and then the chat GPT, I'll say her because it's a female voice, when she starts speaking, that's my cue that I can then hit refresh on my keyboard. And then on my keyboard, what she will say will come up. And generally, it's right there. Now, what you do to get your students to take advantage of that is you show them how to refresh ChatGPT, you show them, you practice it all together, and then you show them actually how to record a Zoom meeting. I'm surprised still, even these days, a lot of kids still don't know how to record a Zoom meeting. Well, let me show you. I made a quick list here of the things that you're going to need. First of all, what you'll need as an instructor, okay? You'll oops, sorry, it's asked me because, as a separate post that I talked about today, I have very tight security on my computer. Um, you probably are better off doing this in a classroom that's already set to be done synchronously online, because then that way your kids are already used to Zoom. If you do it in a face-to-face classroom, then you have to introduce Zoom, because most kids, they probably have some experience with Zoom, but only at a rudimentary level. When they do face-to-face, I'm sorry, face-to-face, when they do internet video chat, a lot of it's done on Instagram or on other platform, SNS or social media platforms, not necessarily Zoom. Zoom is a little bit more tricky and a little bit more intimidating. So not many students know how to start their own Zoom meetings, much less how to record, and sometimes how to even share something to a recording. So these are all things that you're going to have to show them. You'll need to do that with good internet connectivity in the face-to-face classroom and a projector that will hook up to your computer. So keep that in mind. If you don't have that in your current classroom, then you're going to need to arrange for the classroom to do that. A Zoom account, either paid or non-paid, because you only need about 20 minutes, 30 minutes to show all of this to the students. Okay. But you will probably need an LMS so that the students can take their Zoom videos and submit them. If you ask them to come in via email, it's going to make a huge mess in your email inbox. And if you have no LMS, then I understand, but really, I really recommend that you have an LMS. Now, what the students are going to need to know is how to get into Zoom, okay, how to do recordings, how to retrieve those recordings. They have to know where the actual recordings went. Some of them, if they'll have a paid Zoom account, will get confused and send the recording up to the cloud. Some of them don't know where the Zoom recordings are in their computer files. So you have to show them all of that. You have to make sure their microphones and their cameras are working not only on their phone, but on the PC itself, on the Macintosh itself. You have to make sure that if they're going to submit those videos to the LMS, teach them, don't just tell them to do it, teach them how to actually submit those video files to an LMS, because I discovered that I was one of very few people that actually asked them submit video files to their LMS. They weren't quite sure how to do it. Make sure that they know how to use ChatGPT, practice using ChatGPT, practice this whole thing with like going Command R or Control R on your keyboard before they go home and do this themselves. If you're going to do it in class, that would actually be easier because you tell them to bring their own computer. But if you have a small classroom with 30 kids in it, they're all doing this at the same time, it's going to create a din. It's going to make the recording very hard to figure out. I suggest you get them to practice it in class, but do the actual recording at home. Okay, so that's how I got that going, and it actually worked fairly well. The first time I did it, a couple of kids were kind of confused about what it was they were supposed to be sharing. One kid was just showing, like he was just sharing 1/4 of his desktop and just a little bit of the chat GPT window. So I guess he got a little bit confused about where the sharing panel was properly. Some of them forgot to turn on their camera, so their face wasn't actually in the actual share, but at least I could hear their voice and I could hear ChatGPT responding. And I think it's a really, really good exercise. The kids were less hesitant, it seemed, to actually speak in English because they knew that ChatGPT was going to respond to them in English. And it wasn't a human, it wasn't going to be judgmental. They would have problems sometimes if they had really bad pronunciation, and ChatGPT would say, "Oh, let me take it easy on this Japanese person," and actually start responding to them in Japanese. But I also showed the students how to avoid the problems with that. And actually, if I can show you here, I showed them some prompts. Where are we here? Yeah, there's my course. Now let me go to a share here. Some ChatGPT prompts that I thought would actually come in handy for them. And I put that again in my LMS, and that was in my class 9. There we go, ChatGPT prompts. And these are the sort of prompts that I thought that they could find useful. The first long prompt is to get ChatGPT to know how to respond to them in general. I want to study the following paragraph or so. And then other questions like, I don't understand this phrase, please explain, give me example sentences and such. And giving them those kinds of prompts would actually be very helpful. There's still a few other things that I haven't talked about because I didn't want to make this video too long, but hopefully in the video itself or in the comments thread below, we can have a bit of a discussion about it. And I'd be happy to discuss. Thanks very much. I hope you found this useful. Bye, everybody.